Hello and welcome to Vikaasa with Xynteo, pioneering good growth in India, wherein forward-leaning businesses came together to celebrate 5 years of planet and people positive impact. In this episode, we bring you an exclusive event highlight. The day kick-started with a keynote address by BVR Mohan Reddy, founder and chairman Xynteo.
In order to bring about sustainability and inclusivity across the world, across the population around the world, certainly collaboration becomes extremely important. And the way in which I see future is technology will play an extremely important role in making sure we bring about this inclusivity and sustainability in the world. What India has done so well in the recent past is building up these public digital platforms. That's one way I believe will be making sure that we will bring inclusivity for the society. Where we need collaboration at this point of time, and this is an appeal that I have for the August audience this afternoon, is about healthcare analytics. That's a crying need for this nation. The second one, equally important, is our ability to make sure that we have more good quality education in this country. Third area is smart agriculture, accurate weather forecasting, crop patterns, farm-related matters is another dying need for a farmer in India given the type of stress that they go through. We have a challenge in terms of digital literacy. Not all people are digitally literate at this juncture. To address all these issues, I think the key to it would lie in collaboration. Collaboration of all the stakeholders. It has to be government, it has to be industry, it has to be business, it has to be education, it has to be the society at large. Thank you.
Up next, we have a panel discussion on how collaboration and bias for action can drive sustainable and inclusive growth in India.
I'm going to kick started with you, Mr. Mehta. Given the kind of context that we're talking about, the tremendous potential for India, what according to you is the larger role for businesses to drive India's vision?
I firmly believe on the India story. And I believe that there are many factors which are playing to India's strength. Whether we look at it from a perspective that 1/5 of the working age population will be in our country, or you look at it from a lens of that the Industrial Revolution 4.0 plays to our strength, or you look at the kind of reforms we have had in our country, which is making our country far more competitive, be it the cost of capital, be it the cost of logistics in the country. So there is no question that India is at a very sweet spot right now. And we have only ourselves to blame if we don't realize the potential that the country offers us, the global environment offers us. And business has a very big role to play in it. Business, I believe, with the right purpose and values, is a force for good. And we can be catalyst for India's development, which is sustainable and inclusive. We needed both.
Mr. Sethi, just to stretch that point forward, we're seeing massive infrastructure development across the country. In light of this, do you think that sustainability considerations are now being relegated to second place?
I agree with Sanjeev. We're seeing a lot of intent to drive responsible growth. So sustainability, green development, human-centric sensitivities are the key drivers. If you look at just offices of commercial organizations, they only want to occupy real estate that's green, that has green construction material, that emits less carbon emissions, etc. And today, as a result of this drive, India has the second highest office stock that's green in the world. So I would say the intent is very strong. It's a positive spirit, but certainly a lot more to be done still.
Mr. Breckelmans, I'd like to get your thoughts on the same from a technology perspective as well, because technology transfer is often thought of as a one-way flow from developed nations to developing. But how do you think we can make this a two-way street, especially in the case of India? And related to that, how do you believe India is likely to emerge as a hub for technology innovation, particularly in the area of climate tech?
And India, of course, has been long recognized for its innovation and innovative qualities. And that was not lost on us in Shell. We've long seen that opportunity, and I think over the past 10 years or so, we've certainly been able to leverage that very significantly. Over the last decade or so, I think we've seen a fivefold increase in our footprint here in the country. It's mostly been around human capital. And I would say today, certainly India is one of our centers of innovation. And we also, I think, should then bring in mind or take in mind that isn't just simply to have innovation here in India and exercised by people in India serve the Shell operations and businesses in the world. Actually, it's both to serve India's prospects and potential and future, as well as the operations we have around globally. And secondly, what is very important is we actually look at that to say between our different technology centers, we have one in Houston in the US, we have one in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, we have one here in Bangalore and in Chennai in India. The game for us actually is together be the best we can be. So it's not a matter of from us to you, from you to us. It's how can we together be the best and really leveraging what we know and find across the world into something that then allows us to innovate products that are of use to India and help India move forward as well as the rest of the world. And that, I think, is the leverage we have found. I think there's huge opportunity, and I think India is at the sort of early stages of starting to discover the role it can play. From the technology and the digital space, I think there is now a huge opportunity for India also to translate that advantage into products and manufacturing for the whole world.
Mr. Pai, let me get in your thoughts on the same. What do you believe is the role of the public-private partnership in really driving this growth?
India has to grow. We will need to have more manufacturing activity. We'll have to do more mining. We need more metals. And the challenge for us is to make sure that it's done in such a way that it's sustainable, that the environment is protected, and at the same time, livelihoods and jobs are created, because that's what's needed in our country. So I think that if you look at it for us, we are big into mining because India needs the metals. And mining happens in very remote parts of the country where livelihood generation is a big issue. So I don't think the answer is sort of giving handouts and freebies for a while, because mining will come to an end and people need to continue. So we came up with a sustainable mining framework, which says that yes, you need to mine, but you have to do it in such a way that you can give back the water, the biodiversity, and the fauna back in the shape it was. And I think this one you have to do with the government, because the government is a big part. So when we go to do mining, it's the whole bureaucracy and everyone that we work with. The second is, we found that in most of these remote areas, there are a lot of artisans, there's a lot of ancient crafts that in these last few years of development have all got suppressed. So we found, for example, in our Garipalma mines that there was this Kosa silk art, which you will see all around today. And we could get a movement going where we could employ the ladies, we could set up the ecosystem. So I think these are examples to show that you can grow in a sustainable manner. So when you do your growth, you have to keep an eye on the environment, you'll have to invest in it. And it's not just a question of giving handouts or charity. It has to generate jobs and livelihood that are sustainable.
That's a very valid point. And Mr. Kumar, let me draw you in to the conversation. As a senior partner at Xynteo, an advisory firm, you work very closely with a host of corporates. Is it that you're seeing now an increased sense and interest from businesses to adopt sustainability in the paradigm? And how do you see businesses really maximizing that impact and playing a larger role?
I think we are seeing significant increase in interest from businesses, specifically those that are led by pioneering leaders and visionary leaders who are committing and investing in sustainability goals. While individual businesses are committing to sustainability goals, the kind of challenges that we are trying to address are so large and so complex that it calls for joint action. And our experience, we have understood that to be able to solve these problems, it is extremely important to bring collaboratives with a very clear joint ambition and be able to solve those problems in a collaborative way. Vikaasa is an example. We are working on fairly complex problems around plastic circularity, around decarbonization, on livelihood generation, access to healthcare. And I think we have these pioneering businesses with us, with visionary leaders, which helps us really unlock our capability, our resources, to be able to solve those problems jointly and create significant impact. So truly, by bringing businesses together, we can create impact at scale. And we do see the interest in India increasingly towards that direction.
The underlying theme that all of you spoke about was collaboration, and that's quite interesting. So in light of that, I'd like to ask all of you, our panelists, what would be that one factor that you think enables successful collaboration? So Mr. Mehta, I'd like to start with you.
Yeah, I think the congruence of goals, the common purpose and values, that's extremely important. Like-minded people coming together to make a difference.
I would say be focused. Do not try to boil the ocean. Pick up a few focus areas that can really move the needle, get some early wins, and at the same time have your finger on the pulse. So if you're cruising for bruising, you know you can take some corrective actions quickly and change the course.
Mr. Breckelmans, what do you think is that key factor that really enables successful collaboration?
Yeah, if you look across the companies, we are actually a diverse gathering. And so I think you have to find indeed alignment at the principles, and you won't necessarily find it so much in the details. And I think one of the principles in that sense for me would be to work on the basis of equity within the context of there needs to be something that accrues to the benefits of each and every one of the participants across the span of activities we conduct. So equitable benefits to be derived, I think, for all of us is a key principle.
What about you, Mr. Pai?
I think for me, it's important that value and belief system should be common. For me, the most important thing in all of these collaboration is that you have to trust the people you're working with. So I think that's important.
Welcome back to Vikaasa with Xynteo, pioneering good growth. The panel discussion on how collaboration can drive sustainable and inclusive growth in India continues.
And so, Mr. Kumar, we've heard what it takes really to enable multi-stakeholder partnership. But can you tell us a little bit more about Vikaasa? Because that really is a live example of this successful collaboration.
I think Vikaasa was a bold idea when we started, but now it is a thriving collaboration showing measurable impact. And all, as our leaders said, I think Vikaasa has what it takes to collaborate. It has the leadership, it has joint ambition, it has the trust, it has the vision, and that's what really thrives Vikaasa. If I take an example of how this really works, the work on plastic circularity is a fairly complex problem, an area which is largely driven by multiple stakeholders and also including of informal stakeholders of the economy. Really, our work helped bring stakeholders such as individuals, companies, the government, the recyclers, the Safai Sathis all together to convert an ecosystem was fairly informal to a fairly formidable system which is commercially viable and really helps address the problem of plastic waste. I think the second example could be really our work on how we jointly drive decarbonization. And Bill Head happens to be another example of how we look at bringing producers of building materials, finance, technology, buyers of building materials into a collaborative to be able to drive a change and catalyze the change.
So a very intriguing discussion, but before we wrap it up, I'd like to take it to the audience. Mr. Prasad, give us your view on the overall reflections that we've had in this conversation and how you're looking at India's positioning as an innovation hub that will further build on our global standing.
What a great panel. I really like Satish's point on human-centric growth. Frankly, that's it's front and center for all of us as we get there. I can tell you that what I've seen in India in the last 5 years dwarfs anything that we saw in the Silicon Valley in the 90s. And I think we have a lot to be proud of firstly on how much is actually happening over here. I mean, 80,000 startups in the last 5 to 6 years from 176 that was there just 6 years ago. When we were there in the 90s, we had too much hubris. We thought we could, solve the world, and it was technology for technology's sake. But I think what the reality is that it's now technology for society's sake, and very much focused on the problems that we can actually come back and solve. And that has a much higher chance of success.
Thank you. And I'd also like to take time out to thank our panelists for joining in and giving us a lot of deep insight.
The event also witnessed the launch of a book, Pioneering Good Growth, 5 Years of Vikaasa. The book highlights Vikaasa's success stories and impact. Event participants were also guided through an immersive walk which showcased powerful examples of people and planet-positive outcomes across 4 impact areas: waste to value, healthcare, energize and sustainable mining. The attendees learnt about the effort, engagement and impact that Vikaasa has made in creating a more inclusive, sustainable and resilient India. Next, we have a fireside chat on the growth of Vikaasa and the way forward.
Mr. Breckelmans, if I come to you first, as someone who had involved with Vikaasa right at the inception, can you share the ethos behind its genesis and the decision to focus on India?
Take myself back to where I was maybe 9 years ago when I stepped into this role. And as the Shell Executive Management Board representative for India, I had an inherent interest in India, of course, from the word go. And it didn't take me long to realize, thinking about and looking at and visiting India, that when it came to energy and energy transition, for the decades to come, India was going to be the big story. There's no doubt about that. And in my mind, it was absolutely certain that India was to be the story in energy and energy transition for decades to come. And I think that's coming to pass very, very clearly. Then, of course, you come across all the sort of systemic issues. And thinking about those systemic challenges, that brought me to think, if there's any way we want to have impact, we have to find smarter and better ways to move more quickly to scale. And I think somebody said it earlier, speed and scale, I think it was Nasser, was absolutely fundamental in that. And so what I found and felt 6 years ago, that somehow or other we needed to come together at that intersection of India, of impact, and of partnership and collaboration. And that's where I, happened to run into like-minded partners and friends like Sanjeev, like Satish, to actually come together and create and develop Vikaasa.
So if I come to you, Mr. Mehta, what kind of leadership paradigm is required for such kind of partnerships in true sense?
We did refer, a lot of us spoke from different lenses, but very clearly you need a common vision, you need similar purpose and values, you need trust and transparency, and again, ideas are aplenty in the country. There's never a shortage of ideas. I think the difference lies in execution. And if you pick up a project and start working to execute them and then bring about impact, that's where the difference lies. And I think we can very proudly say that we have been able to pick up the streams and execute them with the ideas that we had, not alone, but together. And that's where collaboration has made a difference.
What would be your vision of Vikaasa in the next 5 years?
I think the first is these 4 streams. We clearly have to take them to a logical conclusion. Scale them up, impact not just Mumbai, but many cities in the country. That's one. The other is, with the power of collaboration, what more can we do? What are the next areas where we can collaborate and make a difference?
If I come to you, Mr. Breckelmans, what would be your vision of Vikaasa in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I'd like to build on the points Sanjeev made. I think this is around more of and scaling. And we recently launched our new energy scenarios. And if you think about these, in the context of what the world's going to need, then under certain scenarios, we will see over the next 30 years or so, the primary energy needs of the world grow by 40%. So we're going to need more energy. So how do we get to that scale? I think is one of the biggest questions that we face in Vikaasa. And of course, I would there then refer to taking different lenses and working different approaches.
Thank you so much. It's just an absolute honor to have the time with you and have this conversation. There's so much for us to kind of take this and carry on with our work on Vikaasa. Thank you so very much.
Satish Pai of Hindalco Industries addressed the gathering by sharing his reflections on the event.
I think that for us, we just have to get the execution going. The seeds have been planted, and I think the companies and the right people are around the table. So I look forward to working with the Vikaasa committee and Nitin and everyone. And, we have a bunch of good ideas. We got a lot of good people. And normally when you have good people and good ideas, if we can all put that together, it should be great. So I think that will be what we'll do in the next 5 years. Thank you.
Nitin Prasad, chairman at Shell Group of Companies in India, shared his insights on other Xynteo India's initiatives.
I'll tell you a little bit of a story. A couple of years ago, we were so committed and we thought we had the hydrogen solved and figured out in Germany. And so we decided that we were going to build 100 hydrogen stations in Germany, and we did. And I encourage you all to go there because, if you go to a hydrogen station in Germany, can anybody guess what you actually get? Well, you get flowers because you'll be probably the only customer we've seen for a month. Right? Every time you come, it's inauguration. And this is not a story about, how we're sort of taking a look at this and saying, wow, we made a mistake over there. But it's a little bit of a story about that, how important it is for us to all move together. And this is what Build Ahead's really about. And therefore, our focus in Build Ahead is to bring all the partners together so that we remain committed to build the infrastructure, the capability, the capacity, but also the demand side and get the demand activation, the financing, as well as the standards and protocols to go forward. And that's where Build Ahead is going to go and focus on. But one thing I'd just like to leave you with is as we discussed over here, we had a lot of challenges that we want to go for. And so the Build Ahead for me is not just about decarbonization of the construction sector, but it's really for us and Vikaasa to create a formula under Satish's leadership and Sandeep's leadership to come back and take other sectors and create and do the same thing as we go forward, whether it be waste or agriculture or fleets or anything else that we choose to pick up. So watch this space. I think we're well on track to come and deliver, thanks to the great leadership we've had and thanks to the leaders who are going to take us forward.
The program highlighted a critical opportunity for generating actionable initiatives that ensure an enduring legacy for India's vision beyond 2023.